wildlife and wild meat trades, focused on some of the developing countries, but also with a component that looks at the kind of global issues and relations to international trade agreements and regulations controlling international trade in agriculture, wildlife, and wild meat. So we've been working for a number of years and in a bunch of different countries. We are now in the last year of the funded work, so the 5th and final year, where we are trying to synthesize and bring together all of our learning around agricultural commodities, wildlife, wild meat, but also summarizing our impact in various ways. And impact is including impact on the international policy community, impact on national kind of policies and changes there, impact at local level, and impact on businesses and financial bodies. A fair amount of our global work is involving creating tools, online digital systems, and metrics, and things like that. We've been working with a variety of them, and the PLANGEA platform is one that IIS has been developing, where we've provided some funding from the Trade Hub because it links into some of the global policy decisions that were made last December in Montreal, especially in relation to restoration and conservation, which are now targets 2 and 3 in the new global biodiversity framework, and national planning, which is target 1. So we have a way to provide a system that can help countries with some of that implementation work. I think that's mostly what I wanted to say. I mean, everyone who we're talking to here, I hope we will be able to bring your work into our synthesis over the last year. Aisha is also developing websites and outreach communication materials. So when the funding ends, which sadly it will, we will have a lot of legacy material on a well-organized website that people can use for the coming years. And of course, another part of my job is to try and raise funding for the work in some form to continue. So that's enough from me, I think, and then back to Aisha. Thanks very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Neil. Thanks for introducing the project. So next, I will hand over to Matthias, who will give a talk on how to utilize information from the PLANGEA platform in meeting multilateral environmental agreements. Over to you, Matthias.
Thank you, Aisha. Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here speaking about the PLANGEA platform, who we have been working for and expecting it for quite some time. So I want to speak today about the 3 Rio Conventions and why spatial planning is fundamental to achieve the targets and goals of each of the conventions, and these conventions are the foundations for sustainable development. So the 3 Rio Conventions emerged during the 92 Earth Summit meeting in Rio de Janeiro. And each of the conventions, they have parallel processes setting goals and targets. And all 3 of them include conservation, restoration, and sustainable use of land resources. And land is central to the action plans in the 3 Rio Conventions. So the first convention that I want to speak about is the climate change. The climate change convention, the targets to limit global warming for a maximum of 1.5 degrees. And countries in this convention present their national contributions, that's called NDCs. Some analysis shows that 66% of the NDCs, the national contributions, already include nature-based solutions or natural climate solutions for both adaptation and mitigation plans. So the nature-based solutions or natural climate solutions is using nature and ecosystem services and land solutions to reduce the impacts of mitigating climate change and also promoting adaptation for the communities and societies. In 2019, Bastin estimated that 0.9 million hectares of restoration would provide a mitigation of 205 gigatons of carbon, of CO2. So that puts restoration, land restoration, in as a key component and probably the most effective climate solution for mitigation. This paper has received some criticism on how they estimated this, but restoration is still one of the most efficient solutions for reducing the impacts of climate change. So the second convention that I want to speak about is the UNCCD, the UN Convention on Combating Desertification. The main target of this convention is to achieve land degradation neutrality, so eradicate degradation of land resources on Earth. And they produced so far 2 global land outlooks, compiling all the information from the countries and from the activities conducted in the countries. And in their baseline estimations, 25% of land is degraded on the planet. We are losing productivity. And when we say land, we include farms, we include forests, all kinds of ecosystem, of terrestrial ecosystems. So we're talking about habitat for biodiversity, but also agriculture and pasture land that provide products for society. In their national targets, the countries have committed to restore 500 million hectares of land. And that includes restoring degraded agricultural land using agroecological solutions, for example, and also restoring native ecosystems in this 500 million hectares. And in alignment with UNCCD, IPBES produced a report on land degradation, saying that land degradation already affects 3.2 billion people in the planet, and the economic loss represents 10% of global GDP annually. So land degradation is a huge issue for combating desertification and for sustainable development. So we are losing agricultural productivity, and that's why it relates to our project, the Trade Hub. And the third convention that I want to speak about is the CBD, as Neil brought, the Convention on Biological Diversity. In 2022, last December, it was adopted the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, and there are a few area-based targets, if we can call, that target 1 is a biodiversity inclusive spatial planning. So countries are required to present, to conduct spatial planning on how they will include all the other targets in their seascapes and landscapes. Target 2 has the ambition of restoring 30% of degraded areas of ecosystems, also including aquatic, marine, terrestrial, freshwater, and coastal ecosystems. Target 3 aims at conserving 30% of seascapes and landscapes. And target 10 is related to agriculture and forestry, wants to increase the area of sustainable management of agriculture and forestry, also aquaculture and fisheries. Therefore, the question is, can we meet all the targets from the 3 Rio conventions? So we need to mitigate climate change, make society adapt to climate change, eradicate land degradation, and conserve biodiversity, restoring native ecosystem, protecting native ecosystems, and promoting sustainable use in productive forest and agriculture. So that's why the PLANGEA platform is so important for the countries to plan their work, because without efficient planning, we'll not be able to achieve the targets presented in the 3 Rio conventions. Are more some people question if we have space to meet all the targets. So I hope that PLANGEA can help us meet all these targets, so we can support the countries to prepare their targets and implement the policies. So, and how can we optimize the planning to achieve these multiple targets? With this, I close my my part, and I pass back to Aisha.
Thank you, Mateus. It was great to get some background on the Rio Conventions and how PLANGEA fits into meeting these targets. So as to PLANGEA, I will now hand over to Bruna Pavani from IIS to give a demonstration of the PLANGEA platform. The platform is also linked in the chat if you would like to access it.
Thank you, Aisha. Thank you, Mateus. Thank you, Neil, for the introducing about the theme, the topics. I share my screen for. It's okay. Everybody can see?
Yes, we can see.
Okay, thank you. Just 1 second. Thank you. And so, hi everyone. My name is Bruna Pavani. I am a researcher in International Institute for Sustainability in Brazil. And I work in a trade hub project and in the last 2.5 years here in IIS. And I am really happy that I am here to present PLANGEA for our colleagues in Trade Hub, and we can open for the external invitees this research meetup, because the research meetup normally is an internal event of the Trade Hub. So thank you, Aisha, to this opportunity to open this event for our partners outside the Trade Hub. So we would like to thank my colleagues at the UNEP-WCMC who helped to organize and promote this research meetup. And it's a pleasure. It's a special partnership with you. PLANGEA Web is an online decision support platform for spatial planning developed by IIS, International Institute for Sustainability, in collaboration with our partners and donors. This output has been funded by the UK Research and Innovation Global Challenge Research Fund under the Trade Hub project. And endorsing the Mateus call to speech, we expected that this web platform offers support for the stakeholders to make choice based in scientific evidences. At various scales, we work here in national and global scales, improving after this data, you can improve multilateral initiatives, strategies, and you can implement better strategies to the agreements in these multilateral initiatives. So we take the opportunity to thank everybody here. So we're happy that you can understand better about the main objectives and functionalities of the platform, but everybody can talk and contact us about here for eventual questions and partnerships. Okay. The PLANGEA Web was created based in internal and consistent integral modeling that we are using in IIS in the last 10 years. And we developed this PLANGEA modeling in IIS for restoring and conserving priority areas in the world and in specific regions. And after that, this modeling, we think that you need to create a friendly online interface to facilitate and support the strategic planning of the land use. And so PLANGEA Web was created to facilitate, and we offers customized solutions based on the preference of the decision makers. PLANGEA Web offers, in addition to precision, identify priority areas for restoration and conservation, the individual quantification of the benefits for each metrics that we use. And for example, here we have an example of the results that we have through PLANGEA. The potential benefits associated with the priority areas for restoration. And if you can restore 20% of the priority areas in the world, you can reduce the threats to biodiversity by 75%. You can sequester 14 gigatons of dioxide of carbon from the atmosphere. And you can reduce almost 3,000 dollars per hectare restored in the forest. So it's good results for just 20% of the land restored. So it's the main objective of the PLANGEA, that you need just restore and focus in priority areas to have good results. In the homepage of the PLANGEA Web, we have other sections that you can show more about our researches in IIS that we use the PLANGEA. From the development and application of this PLANGEA Web, here you can see some examples of that's applications. Here it's one of the most important applications that we are working. We work in a support for the Convention on Biological Diversity. We started to work with the targets for the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework, and after the COP15 in the last December, we are adjusting our results for the targets assigned in the COP and so on in the Common Montreal GBF, and so produce the main strategies for the implementation of the targets 1, 2, 3 of the GBF. Other application that we are working here is the biodiversity and climate change mitigation outputs for alternative scenarios for sustainable trade under the Trade Hub project. And we are working to support data for analyzing what is the benefits and the costs for several scenarios in the future, thinking in the potential trade futures in the world. And after these applications, we have a section with publications and data that we are using the PLANGEA modeling. And here you can see the global priority areas for system restoration. It is an article published in the Nature, a scientific journal, and that the IAS has a publication, and in this journal, but in this page we can access another publication. But after scientific articles, we added technical reports and policy briefs and other categories of publications and data as well. So it's important to us achieve other publics, not just scientific publics with the platform. So with this part of publication, we understand that we can achieve many categories of publications to achieve many publics. And in the end, we have some testimonials of our partners and a footer with some key sections. And so we are going to the interactive map. The interactive map is the main important tool of PLANGEA Web. Sorry, and just to complement, for the interactive map and for the website, the homepage, for download our data, we need to log in our website. So it's here, you are pinned the button to log in the website. And so there is a space to register a new user, and after you fill out a form and agree with our terms, you can access our data and download our data. It's just a simple form you can control this access, okay? And so in this interactive map, the users can choose the filters about the analysis of the PLANGEA. You have different scenarios about the prioritization focus, optimization criteria, and spatial scale and action targets. In the first moment, for all of these filters, we have a small explanation about each one, and you can click here and read about. So for the prioritization focus, we can choose between restoration or conservation. It is that you choose if you are working with areas to restore or conserve. And if you are conserve areas, we are talking about the forest and other natural areas, natural vegetation areas in the world. And when you think in restore, in restoration and restore areas, you are thinking areas able to restore. So it's agricultural areas. And we don't consider forest to restore, and don't consider anthropic areas to restore. For optimization criteria, you are using this moment and in the interactive map 3 groups of criteria. The groups are biodiversity conservation, climate change mitigation, and cost minimization. We can choose one, or you can choose 2 or 3 criteria in the same time, and this analysis change at the same time. You can see that the map change. For you understand a little bit better about each criteria group, you can click here and you can understand what is the variables that you consider in each group. For example, in biodiversity conservation, we include the metrics about reduction of species extinction depth, reductions of regions vulnerability, and reduction of ecosystem integrity impact. And all of these metrics are calculated by IAS in the during our researches here and improving our research for each application that we are working. And we understand that it's just a first version of the PLANGEA Web, and we intended to add a new group of criteria that we are working here in IAS in the next PLANGEA Web version, for example. But it's the main group of criteria that we are working here, and we are happy to share with you. And for the spatial scale, we are working with 2 scales in the interactive map. It's the global and national scales. And the action target, you can choose between 100% or 10%, 10, 20, 30%. And what is this means? And when you choose, for example, 100% of the restored areas, you are thinking that you are restoring 100% all of the areas that you are able to restore. And when you choose 30% of the action target, you are restoring the 30% of the priority areas more important to restore in the world. And if we are choose a global spatial scale, you are choose the areas most important in the global. So for example, you can see here in the map that the most important areas when I choose restoration and the 3 groups of the criteria are concentrated in some parts of the world. For example, in Brazil, we have a lot of areas in the Latin America, Africa, but you don't have some areas when you choose these criteria in United States, Canada, and some places of Europe. And so when you can use the national scale, it's mandatory that you will restore 30% of the areas in each country. So in each country, we have the priority areas and that you can restore. And here, it's just a preview clip in that you put a zoom in the country that you are interested. For example, you are interested in Argentina. We have a zoom in Argentina, Australia. It's just a zoom in the country that you can interest. And here you have, sorry, just to clarify, the priority ranking is here. And so you can see the red is the 10% highest with the highest priority. And the 100% is the lowest priority. So when you choose 30% of for the action target, you choose the 10, 20, and 30% of the highest priority areas in the world. So you can see just the red to orange colors in the map. And here in the menu on the right side, you have a lot of buttons that you can help the analysis. Here is just the zoom in and zoom out that you can use it. In the first button, you can choose between two base maps. It's the light gray canvas that we are using now, but you can put this satellite image, maybe to analyze the what is the cover in the Earth. And the next button, it is the optional layers. And you have the land use, regions, income levels, countries, ecosystems, and biomes of Brazil. And for example, if you choose the countries, or the income levels, you can see the countries here. Now you can open a new layer in your map, and you can work in opacity of our results of the priority areas, just to see a little bit better the layer that you add in the map. So for example, now I can put in 50, almost 50. So is the opacity is it's less, so it's less visible, just for you understand better a layer that is down the priority areas. This is just for select area to zoom. For example, if you are selecting more or less a specific central area in Brazil, same area close to Cerrado and downtown, close to state in Brazil, you can choose with this cursor in the map. And here you can choose the language of the page. It's Portuguese and English. The same there is the same buttons in the home page, Portuguese and English. And here you can download the main results of this. So the first download is the full report. It's a report that you show our results, that you can see the map, but many analyses that you show in few minutes in the statistics. And the figure of the priority areas, the map in chief that it's just specialized, that you can use in your analysis. This is just specialized map. And the outcome table. This outcome table, it's the results of each metric that you are using for the optimization criteria. So, for example, that you talked about the biodiversity conservation, that you are using reduction of species extinction. So it's the results for these metrics for each scenario that you are working, and it's a table that you are ever think about that. Yeah, and we are working on metadata to add here to help you understand everything about our data. And that in statistics, there are some analysis that you are working that help the user to understand. In the left side, there are two options to chart. The user can choose the bar chart and the radar chart. In the both charts are the same information, but you can see in different visual charts. And so, for example, maybe to understand everything together, and the radar chart, it's clear to understand and what metric is more have more benefits in this scenario. So, for example, in restoration with which optimization for the three groups of criteria in the national scale, and we can see that the criteria of biodiversity conservation and the climate change mitigation have more benefits than the mitigation of the costs. And for the bar chart, you can analyze one by one criteria. So in the reduction of species extinction debt, and you can, in this scenario, you can reach almost 70% of the reduction of species extinction debt. So it's a big benefit that you can reach with the 30% of restored areas. This you can see for the another metrics here. This graphic change if you change any filters here. So for example, if I put conservation, you can see that change the scenarios. The same for if I, for example, remove the cost minimization, or I can remove the climate change mitigation, and I focus, for example, just biodiversity conservation, you can see that the reduction of ecosystem integrity impact and reduction of ecoregions vulnerability has more benefits that the scenarios that you consider multi-criteria. And the same happens for the climate change mitigation. In this scenario, it's the almost 50% of the potential of the net carbon sequestration. But when you put just focus in climate change mitigation, you have almost 80% of the potential of the net carbon sequestration. And if you choose here the national to global scale, of course, change everything. And if you focus in a scenario, for example, I am putting just climate change mitigation. So my variable, my metric of the climate change mitigation is 100% because the global scale is the best scenario, because you choose the lands in the world that is better, that is the best areas in the world for this type of restoration. It's the same for the other variables of the cost minimization. We are working with the reduction of land opportunity costs and reduction of restoration implementation costs. And so if you can see that the climate change mitigation folks, you don't have reduction of the land opportunity costs, but you can add this group of criteria, you can reduce this cost, and I can focus that you can reduce a little bit more. And here in the third graph, it's the scenarios comparison, that you can see how the results between the scenarios are working. For example, so it's the 7 scenarios that you are working here for the optimization criteria. So if you choose the restoration and the spatial scale global, for example, you can see 7 scenarios for optimization, depends on the optimization criteria. So it's a multi-criteria, is the 3 options selected, same now. the biodiversity, climate, biodiversity and costs, climate and costs, biodiversity, climate and costs. So you can see all of the scenarios together, and you can see the benefits for biodiversity here, the benefits for climate change here, and the benefits for the cost minimization here. And if you choose here, you can see the results for each action target for each scenario. So it's a lot of results just in one graph. And you can download the table here of each results of the metrics, same this bottom that you can download the outcome table here is the same table. And the full report is the same full report that you downloaded in the another bottom. So I put it here to understand a little bit better about this report. So you can print this report and use it for presenting, for sharing with your colleagues, and in using your analysis. A report that you talked about what is PLANGEA and how you are working with this multi-criteria optimization for special prioritization, the criteria that you are using here. A little bit about our main applications we are using now, the projects in the researchers. And here started the part of the report that is dynamic, it depends on the preference of the user. So after this moment and change everything, the report depends on the preference of the user in the filters. So the parameters selected by the user is restoration, 30% global, and the optimization criteria are cost minimization, climate change mitigation, biodiversity conservation. So you can see that are the same that I choose here. So every time that I change the parameter here, I need to generate another report. So here you can see the same graphs that you have in the statistical page in our platform. You can see the map, the figure of the map of the priority areas, just with the 30% of the priority areas. Same in my selection. Here there are the graphs for the scenario comparison. This was the last graph that I explained, but here we are showing the graphic for the global scenarios, the global scenarios for the global targets for each scenarios of the optimization of the multi-criteria, and the results for each metric. So for the reduction of extinction debit, how each works in each scenario. You can see the results for that. And here you have a simple analysis about the national goals and global goals. And you choose there the global goals and the global targets, but we have the comparison between the global and national goals just for the user and can always understand that it's different. The results, the global goals, normally you have better results than national goals because you can choose the best areas in the world. But it's really nice to understand that our country needs to targets inside the countries. It needs this import, and the platform wanna show this importance that you think about that the importance of you need to restore the priority areas in the world, but you need to restore priority areas in the countries. And just a little bit about IIS in the context for that. So I think that is it about the main functionalities of this tool, the PLANGEA Web. After that, I think you have questions, and I think that I hope that everybody can use the PLANGEA Web. And if you have some questions, I can show a little bit more about one section here. So thank you.
Thank you, Bruna. That was a really comprehensive overview. And thank you to your team for all the hard work involved in this website. This is really great. So I think we have some questions in the chat before I open the floor to people in the audience online. Thank you, Lyra, for answering some of these already. So we had a question from Carlos Pavani on whether it's possible for a research institution to customize the platform for specific watersheds and environmental issues. Carlos, maybe you want to come in here.
Yes, you can work, and in PLANGEA you are working with the special data, so you can work with any cell that you can choose. For example, if you are it's important watersheds for your analysis, you can choose the analysis for the watersheds. Depends on the limits that you are using our analysis. And in IIS, we are using watersheds for specific analysis in Brazil, in Paraíba do Sul, for example, between the border in São Paulo, Rio de Janeiro. But now we are working in scales of biome and municipalities. But it's possible you are using watersheds, how a limit for the analysis.
Great. I think there was also a question from Lyra. Maybe you want to come in here, Lyra.
Hi. So first of all, just to make sure that I did answer correctly the query from Milena about the restoration data, is it exactly the same as the Strasbourg et al. 2020, or has there been an update? And I wondered if somewhere on the website there's some explanation of the conservation methodology, or if that's available for people to read somewhere. Thank you.
Hi, Lara. The PLANGEA was updated by the Strasbourg 2020. For example, in the Strasbourg 2020, we have just the priorities for restoration. And here we have restoration and conservation. In Strasbourg 2020, we have just one criteria for biodiversity conservation, that is the reduction of species debt. And now we create after this moment, we working in the last 2 years in other two criteria for the biodiversity conservation: reduction of ecoregions vulnerability and reduction of ecosystem integrity impact. And both criteria was developed in the context of the work that we are supporting CBD analysis, and that I talked about a little bit in the applications section. So developed in this context, and we are using here in the analysis of PLANGEA.
I had a look at the conservation map as you were speaking, and I was curious about how much of the UK was highlighted as a high priority for conservation. Has that come in from one of those ecoregion type criteria? Sitting here in the UK and looking around thinking, it's not a high global priority from my perspective.
For choose the ecoregions, we are using the ecoregions defined by the WWF, that is the each ecoregion defined in the world, and we are using the integrity that for the quality of the habitat between this ecoregion. And it's a metric that we are created here, and we are publishing in this paper that we are submitting now. It's this paper that we are talking about the GBF of the CBD. I think that we shared a few some months ago, but we can talk a little bit more. It's there in this paper we have described the method of each criteria that we developed in the second moment after the Strasbourg 2020.
Thank you, and I have read that draft. I'm mostly thinking it would be helpful for people who are looking at the maps online to have a summary of, you know, what's behind what they are seeing, and probably it's on the website and I have just not found it yet.
Sorry, in the website you don't have this information yet. We are working in a metadata of the website, and that we can download that. But you don't share. You can't share in the website yet, because we needed to submit it for the paper before, and we needed to take a number of the metadata with the UN as well. So it's that, but the metrics here are based in this paper that we are working to the GBF.
Thank you for all this explanation. And I should have said at the start how beautiful this whole website is and how lovely all the little interactive graphs are. You know, it's much more than an interactive map. So I want to offer my congratulations for all this.
Thank you, Lara.
It certainly is a brilliant website. So does anyone online have any questions? You can raise your hand or just turn on your camera and start talking. Neil, go ahead.
Just to thank you, Bruna, and yes, it is a lovely website and pleased that we've supported it. Do you have an idea of whether countries or others are using the site already? Do you have some sort of user statistics and some idea about, I don't know, general use by countries? I can imagine students and academics using it quite a lot. It's useful for teaching and things like that, but is it hitting countries?
I have some contacts with not countries, but states here that you can use this data. As I work, for example, in the planning of the restoration in Pará state in Brazil. So for that, you are using this information. And one thing that is really important to us is to share this geospatialized map in this platform. Because, for example, many people before the platform ask us this geospatialized data for working in their analysis. But it was impossible to share this specialized data, this specialized map, before we have a term of use and of this data. So now that the user can fill the form, we agree with the term, I think you have a better control that who is using our data, and the people say about their institution, how you use our data. And I think that is a way that improve the impact of our data, that the people can use in their analysis, not just see the figure, use it and compare with the map that the people produce. But I think that it start a new generation of use of our data now. But before that, you shared a little bit our data with students and other partners. It's just partnerships that you applying together. Then in specific projects, for example, the Para government that you are working with them in the specific project for restoration planning there. But now we are really interested to partnerships with the national government, for example, thinking in national determined contributions, for example, because we are working about a restored is the one of the main solutions based in nature for sequestered carbon. And so it's really important to us if you can work with national governments to apply that. And how I talked before, our analysis that you show here, it's global and national, but in IAS you can work in other scales, say states or regions, and if you interest some places, you can adjust this part of our scale as well.
Okay, we have a question from Marco next.
Hi, Bruna. Congratulations on your work. I have a question. Thinking of this application of this data for restoration projects, does it consider the limits of the rural properties, or is just ecological and ecoregion based? And do you think it can apply it to achieve restoration projects in Brazil? I mean, based on the Forest Brazilian Code? Did you guys hear what I say?
Yes, sorry, I heard you. It's just because I confused me, because I received the information now about the question of new, and I lost me, sorry. Because you asked about the countries, and I received the information of the communication officer that the countries that access the platform in the last month was, sorry, and you repeat it in 5 minutes, in 2 minutes, Mark, sorry.
Okay.
And the country that accessed the PLANGEA Web in the last month was 20 and 30 access from Brazil, 50 access from the United States, 24 access from France, 11 access from United Kingdom, 10 access from Mexico, 7 access from Germany, 5 access for Netherlands, 3 access from Canada, and 3 access for Finland, 2 access for Belgium, and there are another 1 access for other countries. So it's the general panorama for our international arrangement. So sorry. Just I lost me. You can repeat, Mark, please.
Congratulations on your work. I have 2 questions thinking of the application of this data for restoration projects in Brazil. Do you think it can be used for delimiting restoration in farms? It consider the limits, the boundaries of the rural properties, or just consider the ecological parameters? Do you think we can apply both these parameters to define areas in the restoration areas in farms, or it's just ecological parameters for now?
Now, in this data that we show in PLANGEA Web, we don't consider the limits of the farms. You consider just the limits of the land use cover that you have in the map. Our scale is 5 kilometers. But in IAS, we have other specific projects that we are working in, for example, private areas. So in this project that we work in private areas, you consider that. And in the context of the Trade Hub, we are working in a project, in a research line that will analyze the excedent of the legal reserve in Cerrado specifically. And so this excedent of the legal reserve, we are analyzing by farm. So we understand if it is excedent of the legal reserve, if the people can deforest or conserve. And we are compare this data with the priority areas. For example, if the people has the decision of deforest or conserve, if this area is priority or not. But we are working that. You don't have the results yet. But it's really interesting for us. It's one of the research lines that we are here.
Okay, thank you very much. And this data, the platform is very interesting itself. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. I think we also have one question in the chat here. We have a question from Jemima, and she's asked, you mentioned future versions of PLANGEA Web. Could you say a bit more about the criteria you hope to add?
For example, I think that I talked a little bit in applications about the Amazon 2030. Is a project that we are working here in IAS, Amazon 2030. We worked in PLANGEA modeling in all Amazon states. And in this analysis, we created other social criteria that we analyze the income level and the social benefits for the population in Amazon. So, for example, it's one of the criteria that we are thinking in the PLANGEA Web. After this, add other criteria. We think it should add other group of criteria. For example, in IAS, we have a group that work in water criteria. For example, in this analysis, you don't use water bodies, you use just land bodies. But here in IAS, we have a specific group that work in water bodies, rivers, basins. And so we intended to add in PLANGEA this data. The opportunity cost, we are updated by Francisco, that he are here with us, is here with us. And so it's one criteria very important that we are updated in PLANGEA Web. It's a criteria really important in the Trade Hub research that we are working as well. And our researchers that we are working IAS, we are working with published data now. It's a policy in IAS now. Our research that we are working is published, it's open access. And so step by step, you understand that our analysis that we are improved in IAS, you can improve in PLANGEA Web as well. But we need more efforts for that, a little bit more time. But it's for example, if somebody is interested in some data that we are publishing in a technical report or publishing in a paper, let me know. Maybe I can help and I can share in PLANGEA Web and put for everybody can access.
Good to know, thank you. So do we have more questions in the room? I see we have one question in the chat asking if the criteria used to choose the areas is available. Which I think, yes, you've responded to, which is fine. Do we have more questions from anyone online?
I just 2 points. I shared in the chat. The first link is the Amazon 2030 report about the first criteria that social criteria that I told, and the second link is the water criteria that I talked about. It's a thesis of a PhD, that one research here that we are working that. Both are in Portuguese, sorry. But if someone it's interested, you can talk a little bit more.
Great, that's really useful. Thank you, Bruna. I'm also wondering, it was really good to hear about which countries have accessed the data and good to see that information come in so timely. I was wondering if you had any kind of outreach plan in working with people in different countries that may be in more high risk and priority areas to help them define national priorities using the map, if there are any plans there.
So we understand that it's really important to reach the different publics now, and the academic public and the third sector and the government public now. And so for that, we are working in 3 strategies of communication and dissemination of PLANGEA here. And we are working in we hired in a press office in here in Brazil to achieve this public more for decision makers, that you have a little bit little contact yet. And so we think that if they heard about the listen about IIS, it's easier to reach them. So we are thinking these 3 strategies of communication and dissemination in IIS. And we think to participate in some events. We submitted the PLANGEA Web like a presentation in, for example, in Society of Ecosystem Restoration in Australia. It's a most important event for the restoration in the world, and other events of this type, because we think that now we have a good first version of PLANGEA Web, and now we are need to work in the outreach and disseminate that. And so we are thinking to focus in this part now and think about how you can arrive at these important people. And 2 weeks ago, we presented the PLANGEA Web for the it's a group of the most important companies in Brazil. The name is CEBEDS, and it's it's an important group that coordinates the biggest companies for the sustainable development, and we have a good communication with them, and we presented PLANGEA Web for them, and now we are working how we can work with the private sector as well, and not just for applying the private sector, the PLANGEA, but how the private sector can improve our research. For example, the electric sector in Brazil and has a lot of projects of the research and development. And so it's really important that you can see that it is a good areas for research and development in restoration areas, for example, in the hydroelectrics. And so important for them. And so we think that now we are thinking in future partnerships and potential partnerships who can help us in disseminating PLANGEA, because for us, how more people use PLANGEA, it's more for the impact of PLANGEA will be good, because it's really scientific based data, but in a really friendly interface. So it's I hope that you can share PLANGEA in many events, in many opportunities.
Really great to hear about that targeted outreach, and I'll definitely be in touch to hear more about that. That's brilliant. So we also have a question from Lucas online, who has asked, do you think countries' efforts will enhance with PLANGEA Web? What is IIS's idea about how to make governments use the platform? I suppose quite a similar question. Do you have any additional thoughts?
For example, national governments, you have targets to restore areas in the country, and so you think that you can restore areas in the priority areas. You don't need to restore every area in the country, but you restore specific areas in the country. You can reach more benefits in these areas, but you you can use the same analysis, but for conservation as well. And for example, in Brazil, you have many opportunities to conserve areas in Amazon, for example, in Brazil. And so if you can show that mainly about the specific challenge that we have in Brazil, and in Amazon and Cerrado, we have the excedent of the legal reserves, for example, and it's some places that you can deforest, but by law you can deforest by law, but it's not interesting for us that you deforest. So with PLANGEA, you can analyze that the benefits of this area, the benefits of conservation this area. So it's a good justified for the government to show the importance to provide investments, to provide efforts to conserve this area, because you show the benefits of this area. It's not just say, conserve this area because it's good for the world, it's good for the country. No, conserve this area because it's important, because help these species in extinction, reduce the integrity, can maximize the integrity of ecosystem region, and can help in sequester the 20 gigatons of carbon. And so that, and with the cost minimization, you can think about the better areas to reduce the cost of the restoration, because restoration is an expensive activity. Restore, it's not so expensive, but restoration is so expensive activity. So it's good to have this analysis of the cost and benefit of the restoration. And here in Brazil, we are working that we have a planning of restoring. Brazil has a planning of the restoration of the natural vegetation in Brazil, and we are working and to reach the people that are working in this planning to use our data to base this planning, to how Brazil can start to restore, where Brazil can start to restore, and we think that you can show these areas.
Great, thank you for adding to that. And we have a question from Ari. Ari, would you like to come in here and say your question? I can go ahead and read it out. So Ari has asked which scales can generate the analyses, for example, biome, ecoregions, and ecosystems. I saw that the results can be seen in ecoregions level, but would it be possible to see it at a biome ecosystem level, for example, Atlantic forest or Amazon?
In PLANGEA Web, we don't use the biome ecosystem levels for our optimization, but because here we have just global and national data, and we work in just and global scale, and that we are consider that is the global, the target is one target for the global and one target for each country. But for example, Amazon 2030 in the project, you worked in a target for Amazon, so just for the biome of Amazon. In Trade Hub, you are working with targets of the restoration and just for Cerrado. And so we can work in specific regions in PLANGEA modeling, but we can't share everything in PLANGEA Web yet. But we can work in this ecosystem level here. You work in ecosystem level here, but you can't show in PLANGEA Web.
Thank you for clarifying. Do we have any final questions? Okay, in which case on the agenda next we had any closing comments from Neil.
Thank you very much. Again, I mean, really thanks Bruna and IIS team for developing the platform and showing us what it can do. I think there is a lot of potential for using it with countries and companies, as you started to say. So we need to explore that a bit more, I suspect. I also know from Bruna that you would like to come and spend some time with us in Cambridge. So I would strongly welcome you to plan to come over here, and I think we can very much showcase your platform to people here who focus on the work with countries that we do, the work with the CBD, the work with companies. So I think we can actually get it under the noses of a few more people, especially if you're sitting in Cambridge for a while. So I think that will be good. We'll explore that more with you, and yeah, and thanks to everyone for the questions as well, and for coming to this researcher meetup. I don't always manage to get to them, but it's always really interesting when I do. So thank you to everybody, and especially for Aisha and Bruna for organizing and presenting. So thank you very much from me.
Great, thank you, Neil. And I can second that we would love to have you in Cambridge, Bruna. Just watching this demonstration, you can see how much work has gone into the PLANGEA platform and getting that website sorted. So congratulations and well done on all the hard work. And with that, I will close it there. And thank you so much to Bruna and Matthias and everyone for their questions. I hope you have a great day. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you,
Bye.
Aisha. Thank you.